August 9th, 1965. The world witnessed something unprecedented. A leader breaking down on national television. That man was Lee Kuan Yew, a sharp Cambridge intellect, a master of rhetoric, a man renowned for his cold logic and iron fist. But that day, before millions of eyes, he sobbed uncontrollably on air. He wasn't weeping over war or a natural disaster. He was weeping because his country had just been thrown away. Singapore was expelled from Malaysia. Look at the reality of that moment. No army, no resources. They even had to beg for a single drop of fresh water to drink. It was a nation declared dead on arrival, right in the delivery room. For me, he said through choked sobs, it is a moment of anguish. But look at the reality today. 50 years later, that island of despair boasts a GDP per capita of $72,794. Higher than the United States, miles ahead of the United Kingdom, outstripping even the wealthiest oil kingdoms on the planet. Their prime minister earns a salary of $1.6 million a year, 4 times that of the US president. People say, you must pay a high price to buy integrity. But is that the whole truth? Or is it just a way to legitimize power through numbers? The truth is, Singapore didn't get rich by playing by the rules. They got rich by rewriting the rulebook entirely. A master plan to turn human beings into assets on a balance sheet, and to turn freedom into a commodity traded for prosperity. Welcome to the most successful proprietary experiment in human history, the Singapore Protocol. Let's rewind the clock for a moment. Southeast Asia in the 1960s was no tourist paradise. It was a death trap. Vietnam was drowning in bombs and bullets. Indonesia had just endured a bloody purge. Malaysia was struggling to save itself from the fires of ethnic conflict. And Singapore? An island spanning a mere 580 square kilometers. No oil, no gold, no farmland. Even a ladle of fresh water had to be bought from Malaysia at whatever price they dictated. The British had once turned this place into a convenient naval base for their empire. But now, the sun had set on the British Empire. They withdrew their troops. Jobs vanished. The economy disintegrated overnight. Malaysia, the nation Singapore had joined only 2 years prior, heartlessly threw the island onto the streets with a brutal message: fend for yourselves. Why? Because of the ethnic math. The ruling elite in Kuala Lumpur feared that the Chinese tumor in Singapore would metastasize and seize control of the entire federation. So, they decided to cut it out. Without mercy. At that time, Lee Kuan Yew did not believe in the dreamy democracy that you and I were taught. He didn't believe in long-winded debates in parliament. He believed in efficiency. And he was about to prove a devastating truth to the world. An efficient dictator, at times, is better than 100 incompetent democratic politicians. How do you turn a tropical swampland into the Switzerland of Asia? The answer doesn't lie in luck. It lies in a ruthless 6-step blueprint. Step 1. Become irreplaceable. Looking at the map, Lee Kuan Yew saw a geopolitical Achilles heel, the Strait of Malacca. This is the windpipe connecting the Indian and Pacific Oceans. Oil from the Middle East flowing to China. Containers from Europe pouring toward Japan, it all has to pass through this narrow gap. Lee understood, whoever controls the port controls the flow of currency. But Jakarta had ports, Bangkok had ports, and Manila did too. To win, Singapore had to become the ultimate machine. They poured money into colossal cranes, automated container systems, and deep water berths capable of hosting 100,000-ton vessels. By 1972, Singapore became the busiest container port in the world, but that was just the hardware. The software inside was the true stroke of genius. Step 2. Turn Singapore into a financial black box. While neighboring countries were busy with under-the-table bribes, Singapore offered ironclad contracts. In 1961, Lee established the EDB, the Economic Development Board, a financial commando unit. They flew to Texas to hunt down oil giants, to Germany to woo Siemens, and to Japan to lure Sony. Their weapon was a cheat code of taxes. 17% corporate tax, the lowest in the region. 0% capital gains tax. You made $10 million from stocks? Keep all of it. 0% inheritance tax. Your ancestors' legacy belongs to you, not the state. And most importantly, zero bribery. Lee Kuan Yew knew that to gain Western trust, he had to create a system cleaner than London and more predictable than New York. Step 3. Import everything. Lee Kuan Yew didn't care about sovereignty in the form of radical nationalism. He cared about cash flow. No water? Build desalination plants and wastewater recycling, known as water. No engineers? Headhunt from around the world with a promise of a visa within 48 hours. No capital? Throw the doors wide open for Western banks. When Bank of America and Standard Chartered landed in the 70s, Singapore officially became the safe of Asia, a place where tycoons stashed their money without fear of nationalization. Step 4. Humans as assets on a balance sheet. This is the most ruthless part. Lee Kuan Yew engineered a new species. In Singapore, your life is decided at age 12 through the PSLE exam. High score? You are the elite, scouted and pampered with scholarships. Low score? You go to vocational school to become a laborer. Period. Then there are the golden handcuffs, the CPF system. Every month, 20% of your salary is deducted into a government-managed retirement fund. You use that money to buy an HDB flat. But remember, the government owns 80% of the housing. You don't buy land. You only lease it for 99 years from the state. Step 5. National eugenics. In the 80s, Lee Kuan Yew feared that declining birth rates among the educated would lead to a degradation of the gene pool. In 1984, the Graduate Mothers Scheme was born. Women with university degrees were given $10,000 to have a third child. Women without degrees? They were encouraged to undergo sterilization in exchange for $5,000 in housing assistance. It was eugenics in the name of science. Though abolished in 1985 due to pressure, the message was stamped. In the eyes of the state, human value is measured by a degree. Step 6. Shadow banking and the Lee dynasty. And here is the final secret. Where does the money flow? Singapore has two financial monsters, Temasek Holdings and GIC. These two funds hold over $700 billion in global assets from Alibaba and Spotify to Visa. But they never release detailed public reports to the citizenry. Who runs them? Lee Hsien Loong, the eldest son, served as prime minister for 20 years. His wife, Ho Ching, served as the CEO of Temasek for just as long. This isn't a typical democracy. This is a family corporation worth trillions of dollars. The Singapore Protocol has been a resounding success in creating wealth, but the price is a sterile society where you can own everything except true freedom. But there is a problem when you build a perfect machine. It only works as long as the components don't start to rust. Lee Kuan Yew ruled for 31 years, then handed over the reins to successors he personally molded, from Goh Chok Tong to his eldest son, Lee Hsien Loong. It is still the People's Action Party, the PAP. It is still the same policies. It is still that same absolute control. From the outside, everything still shimmers, like the lights over Marina Bay. But if you look closely at the joints, you will see the cracks being covered up by three great lies. The first lie: Singapore is a meritocracy. The reality: it is a systemic plutocracy. They tell you that if you are talented and work hard, you will succeed. True. But look at the reality of the Singapore dream: housing. In 2024, even a rundown HDB flat costs an average of $500,000. Luxury apartments? Don't even dream of it without several million in your pocket. You don't actually own that home. You are merely prepaying rent to the government for 99 years. When the clock hits zero, the property reverts to the state. No compensation, no negotiation. You spend your whole life paying off a debt for an asset your children will never truly inherit. The state owns the land, owns the house, and indirectly owns your entire future. The second lie: The icon of multicultural harmony. The reality. It is segregation by design. Lee Kuan Yew did not believe in organic integration. He managed people like chess pieces. Through the ethnic integration policy of 1989, every HDB block has strict quotas, a set percentage for Chinese, Malay, and Indian residents. The surface-level goal is to prevent ethnic enclaves. But the dark side? You don't have the right to choose your neighbors. You don't have the right to sell your home to whomever you want if that area's ethnic quota is full. This is a peace built on coercion and surveillance, a society that is harmonious on paper, but in reality consists of separate lanes where people live together but never truly mix. The third lie. Singapore is a democracy. The reality. It is a rigged game from the start. The PAP has never lost an election since 1959, not because they engage in crude ballot stuffing, but because they are far more sophisticated. And if you still intend to challenge the system, remember Operation Spectrum in 1987. 22 people were detained without trial, accused of a Marxist conspiracy without a shred of evidence. And here is the darkest part of this protocol. Most Singaporeans accept it. They have signed a Faustian bargain. Trade freedom for security. Trade your voice for prosperity. But as the younger generation looks at million-dollar flats they will never truly own, and as they see a system that always tilts toward the powerful, that contract is beginning to shake. Can Lee Kuan Yew's machine run forever when the faith of its most vital components, the people, is slowly running dry? But Lee Kuan Yew's legacy doesn't end at the borders of this island. It is becoming a kind of operating system virus, spreading across the globe. In 1978, Deng Xiaoping flew to Singapore. He was stunned by streets without a single piece of litter, skyscrapers, and container ports that ran with the precision of a Swiss watch. He returned and declared, "China needs 20 Singapores." A year later, Shenzhen was born, a perfect clone of the Singapore Protocol. In Africa, Paul Kagame calls himself the Lee Kuan Yew of the Black Continent. He transformed Rwanda from the ashes of genocide into the region's fastest-growing economy. From Cambodia to the Gulf states like the UAE or Qatar, modern autocrats are all learning how to build paradises for the ultra-wealthy while tightening the screws of discipline on the common citizen. So, here is the final question for you. Are you willing to trade your vote for a guaranteed high salary? To trade your right to protest for a crime-free city? To trade your soul for absolute efficiency? Think carefully, because while you are still weighing the cost, the world outside has already begun installing this operating system.